The general theme was from inequity to equity. In 1959, when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta King arrived in India for the first time, the land of Gandhi, and at the airport, Dr. King was asked, how is it to be in the land of Gandhi? And King said that to other countries, I go as a tourist. To India, I come as a pilgrim. You know, what is a pilgrimage? I've been to a pilgrimage to Montgomery, Alabama, to the Rosa Parks Museum, standing at the exact same spot where Rosa Parks was booked, because she chose to, again, sit in a certain place on a bus, and chose to much rather go to prison than to move backward. The first few times I went to South Africa in the early 90s, I had to go to Pietermaritzburg train station, because in June of 1893, that's the train station where Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, a 23-year-old lawyer, was thrown off a moving train with all his luggage because he had a first-class ticket, and it was, the brown skin and his perception of being a coolie, which led to that great injustice. Of course, now there's a little museum in the waiting room of where Gandhi sat on a wet and windy night, shivering, and of course has called it one of his sort of most transformational moments. I've been to Robben Island, taking the ferry from the waterfront in Cape Town. And it just so happened to be that the first time I was on that ferry, I was sitting next to Ahmed Kathrada, one of the close associates of Madiba, Nelson Mandela, part of the Rivonia Nine. And I remember arriving by this ferry at Robben Island to then sit on a bus. And the tour guide began by saying, my name is so-and-so, and I was a prisoner at Robben Island. And I would like you to experience this place from the perspective of my eyes. And what a moment that was, when the bus stopped at the limestone quarry. And as we all got out at Robben Island, he said, this is the world's biggest university campus, because as the Mandelas and the Sisulus and the Kathradas and others dug for limestone and carried it from here and there, they were also in some ways enhancing and educating each other. So these are sites, the sites of pilgrimage were based on color, creed, and I would even use the word crass ideologies. The Gandhis and the Parks are publicly humiliated, subjugated, physically violated, chained, imprisoned, and yet these are also sites which helped build resolve, which helped build character. These are the sites which became the centers of cascading hope, of cascading connection, and building of cascading movements. Of course, these took time. These are sites which in some ways speak what Abe Lincoln said were to our better angels of fairness and equity and equality and our common humanity. It's interesting, in 2000, when Mandela arrived in New Delhi, 49 years after King's pilgrimage and 103 years after Pietermaritzburg, to receive the Gandhi Peace Prize, he acknowledged the significance of Pietermaritzburg. He said, in 1893, you gave us a lawyer by the name of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. And 21 years later, when that was the length of Gandhi's tenure in South Africa, we gave you back a Mahatma. From a 23-year-old lawyer to a 44-year-old Mahatma, who then, of course, went back to India and did things. A few years ago, when I was in Prague, I of course had to visit the Václav Havel Library, the last president of Czechoslovakia and the first president of the Czech Republic, and the one who initiated the Velvet Revolution. And when I walked away from the Václav Havel Library, again a place of pilgrimage for me, I took with me, based on Havel's writing, was that it's humiliation and subjugation in some ways that builds humility. It is something that builds character. And ultimately, I think the question for all of us is not, why were we not Gandhi, or why were we not Mandela, or why were we not Havel? I think the question for us is, why were we not we? Why was I not Arvind? And I think that is the quest that brings us together.